Russia's War in Ukraine by Kathleen, Magramo, and Helen, Regan, CNN. What we're covering, the next winter will be the most difficult since Ukraine gained independence. President Volodymyr Zelensky warned as Russia's invasion brings the threat of an energy crisis. In the eastern Donbas region, Ukrainian troops are locked in fierce street battles with Russian forces in several Donetsk. As other cities face increased air assaults, Russia claims it has opened a land corridor to Russian-occupied Crimea, allowing civilians and goods to pass through the eastern Ukrainian territory. Russia's defense ministry said it created two maritime humanitarian corridors following international condemnation over its blockade of key Ukrainian ports. More than 1,000 Ukrainian soldiers from Mariupol transported to Russia, state media says, from CNN's Josh Pennington and Helen, Ritchie. More than 1,000 Ukrainian servicemen who recently surrendered in Mariupol will be transported to Russia for investigation. Russian state-run news agency TASS reported Wednesday, citing a source in law enforcement. Over 1,000 people from Azovstal were transported to Russia. Law enforcement agencies are working closely with them. TASS reported the source as saying, Russia also plans to transport a number of other Ukrainian prisoners of war to Russian territory, the source added. Some context. In late May, the Russian Defense Ministry claimed that roughly 1,000 Ukrainian soldiers had surrendered after weeks of fighting in Mariupol's besieged Azovstal steel plant. Shortly after, the Russian Investigative Committee, which operates as the Kremlin's main investigating authority, said it would interrogate the Ukrainian surrendered militants evacuated from Azovstal. Ukrainian authorities are yet to publicly respond to the TASS report. World Bank announces nearly $1.5 billion in additional funds for Ukraine. From CNN's Teele, Rebane, the World Bank has approved $1.49 billion of additional financing for Ukraine, the institution said in a statement Tuesday. It's part of a support package worth more than $4 billion that will help pay the wages of government and social workers. The latest round of funding is supported by financing guarantees from Britain, the Netherlands, Lithuania, and Latvia, the statement said. Nearly $2 billion of the total funds pledged have already been paid to Ukraine. The statement said the funds will also help support the World Bank's portfolio of projects in Ukraine, including projects for water supply, sanitation, heating, power, energy efficiency, roads, social protection, education, and healthcare. In late April, Ukraine's finance ministry estimated it would cost $5 billion a month in the near term to keep the country's economy functioning. It's 7 a.m. in Kyiv. Here's what you need to know. The next winter will be the most difficult in the more than 3 decades since Ukraine gained independence. President Volodymyr Zelensky warned Tuesday as Russia's invasion brings the threat of an energy crisis. Here are the latest headlines from the Russia-Ukraine war. Most difficult winter. Zelensky said Ukraine was facing issues of purchasing a sufficient amount of gas for the heating season, core accumulation, and electricity production, with heat and power plants damaged or destroyed by Russian attacks needing repair. In the current situation, due to Russia's aggression, this will indeed be the most difficult winter of all the years of independence, he said. War crimes records. Zelensky also said a book of torturers documenting war criminals and criminals from the Russian army will be launched in Ukraine. Russia has denied allegations of war crimes, but CNN journalists on the ground have seen first-hand evidence of atrocities at multiple locations across the country. Crimea land corridor. Russia claims it has opened a land corridor to Russian-occupied Crimea, allowing civilians and goods to pass through the eastern Ukrainian territory. Russia's defense minister said the military, working with Russian railways, had restored 1,200 kilometers of train tracks and open roads to allow full-fledged traffic between Russia, eastern Ukraine's Donbas region, and Crimea, the peninsula annexed by Russian forces from Ukraine in 2014. Fighting in the east. Ukrainian troops are locked in fierce street battles with Russian forces in Severodonetsk as other cities face increased air assaults in the Donbas region. Satellite imaged by Maxar technologists show military strikes have hit at least 2 hospitals in Severodonetsk and the city of Rebane. Mariupol referendum. High-ranking Russian officials are visiting the occupied city in southeastern Ukraine as they prepare to hold a referendum for the remaining residents on becoming part of Russia. The key city in the Zaporizhia region neighbors the Kherson region that has been under Russian control since the beginning of the invasion in late February, remains repatriated. Ukrainian officials said the bodies of more than 200 soldiers have been repatriated to Ukraine, most of them heroic defenders of the Azovstal steel factory in Mariupol. Ukraine and Russia have conducted an exchange of bodies as part of the agreement that ended at seas. Maritime corridors. Russia's defense ministry said it has created 2 maritime humanitarian corridors to allow for the movement of ships in the Black Sea and the Sea of Azov after facing international condemnation over its months-long blockade of key ports. The European Conservative president has accused the Kremlin of using food supplies as a stealth missile against developing countries by blocking Ukrainian grain exports. Mariupol cholera risk. According to an exiled local official, Russian officials in control of the ravaged southeastern city of Mariupol are considering imposing a quarantine as decomposing corpses and garbage contaminate drinking water, putting remaining residents at risk of cholera and other diseases. Merkel on Putin. Former German Chancellor Angela Merkel said Russia made a big mistake invading Ukraine, adding she was convinced that from Russian President Vladimir Putin's perspective, any plan for Ukraine to join NATO during her time in office would have been tantamount to a declaration of war. Hateful Medvedev. Former Russian President Dmitry Medvedev threatened to make unnamed enemies disappear in a profanity-laced social media post. I'm often asked why my Telegram posts are so harsh. The answer is, I hate them. He said, they're bastards and scum. They want to kill us, Russia. And as long as I'm alive, I'll do everything to make them disappear.